Morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Break Accounting with me, Becky Brooksbank. If you haven't done so already, go and find a cup of tea, coffee, drink of your choice, so you can come back and enjoy 10 to 15 minutes of jargon-free accounting support for your business. So this is the last in series 2, and we have been exploring simple systems throughout series 2. So right the way from why we have to keep records and through to looking at Xero, having a look at petty cash, and all different parts so that you can get your bookkeeping system up and running. Now, I wanted to end simple systems with one of the main reasons for having a good financial system in place, and that is to be aware of fraud. So we don't like to talk about it, but it's such an important topic that we need to consider for your business. So in previous episodes, we've been looking at exactly what the simple systems are, how we might put them in place, but we're going to take that one step further today. And actually, we need to think of a system as having controls in place so that we can mitigate the risk of fraud as best we can. Okay, so when I say fraud, I really mean it's a term we use a lot, but what actually is fraud? So it's really the intent to or the act of misrepresentation, so that we somebody can create a gain or a loss from themselves, a gain for themselves or a loss to the business. So what do we mean by misrepresentation? Well, they pretend to be somebody they're not, or they take assets or items that belong to them don't belong to them, and then they get a gain from it. Okay, so we can think of a really good example of this, which is a scammer. So we've all had them. Sadly, HMRC are very, very prone to the effects of scams. So they ring you and lie about who they are and try and desperately persuade you to give over your bank details to them. Okay, so that's a really simple fraudulent activity to think about. Okay. But as business owners, we're all really, really busy, okay? We are too busy. We're trying to get sales. We're trying to think about keeping our customers happy. We're trying to liaise with suppliers, particularly in small businesses where there's one person doing many roles. Now, it's really easy to forget about the fact that fraud can happen. So I would like to challenge you all as business owners to stop and think about fraud in your business. So I'd like you to think about asking yourself these questions. Where is fraud likely to occur in your business? And you think, oh no, it's fine. It's fine. It won't happen to me. Okay, it can. Okay. And who has the ability to commit fraud related to your business? Now, I use the word related here because it might be in your business, people in your business, but it also might be totally unconnected third parties, like the scammers that I just mentioned, that are trying to get to commit fraud on your business. Okay, so let's have a think about it. So inside the business, who has the ability to commit fraud? Well, the obvious is always employees. Okay, so however much you have employees and you trust them and everything else, there is a possibility that they commit fraud. And it can be something as simple as putting in an expense claim without a receipt. They do that once, okay, they see that you're not checking things thoroughly, and they do it again to see how far they can push this. That is a simple act of fraud. Stealing something that belongs to the business is an act of fraud. So we all have a laugh and a joke about, when COVID-19 hit and everyone was stockpiling loo rolls, how many employees actually went into their business and stuck one in their bag and got it home? That actually, okay, albeit at a small level, is still a fraudulent activity. Okay, so pilfering anything that belongs to your business without asking is an act of fraud. So then you think wider than just your staff. Okay, well, you've got customers, you've got suppliers, and you've got unconnected third parties. So suppliers, I have worked with somebody who was a car garage, and they received an email from somebody who was selling their car saying, please pay these bank details. So they paid them. It wasn't them. Okay, so there's very easy ways now for fraudsters to get around this and request things, and you think they're legitimate and they're actually not. Okay, so other things that you can think about in your business. So you've got property, you've got, some of you might have stock, so we're walking off with stock. You might have payments to unknown sources. You can have employees simply putting more hours through on their timesheets than they've actually done. All these are examples of where fraud can happen in your business, okay? And who has the ability to commit fraud related to your business. So when I start thinking about it like that, obviously you'll start to see how you need to look at different areas of your business to be able to pick fraud up, okay? But the best top 10 tips that I've got, and these ones were nice and concise from the Met Office actually. I was looking for some well-written top tips to point you in the direction of, and these ones were the best I could find online. So these top tips of preventing fraud is be skeptical. We all know if that deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true, okay? So all of a sudden, a supposed new supplier in the market is saying you can have all these goods that you'd normally buy for 25% of the price you'd normally pay. Great. You never get the goods, but you've paid for them, okay? Just think about it. If a deal, opportunity, document, transaction, whatever it might be, feels too good to be true, it likely is. So you might want to do some more due diligence on it. Know your business inside out. Have a thorough understanding. Know how it operates. Know your staff. Understand your products and services you provide, your target market, your business, your legal and regulation obligations, all these things. If you know your business inside out, when you think something is going wrong, that gut instinct will kick in for you. And actually, you're probably right. Okay, so if you know your business really, really well, you're more likely to spot if something isn't quite right. Know your customers and suppliers. So you can spot any requests or transactions that don't feel right if you know your customers and suppliers, okay? So the car garage example that I was talking about earlier, they deal with many new different suppliers, obviously in the nature of the work they're doing. So in order to get around this, they had to put a new policy in place that they called the person who'd sent the email and asked them to check the bank details with them as part of their procedure as a second step. Now, they obviously understand why they're doing that, and it's a safe control to have in place. But the better your relationships are with your customers and suppliers, the better your chance of finding a fraudulent activity is and stopping it. I had one when I was working in a big workplace up in Nottingham, where an email came from the supposed director asking me as the finance manager to make a payment of £25,000 to so-and-so for this bank account. Now, I knew that hadn't come from my manager for the reason that he was sat next to me in a staff meeting at the time that email was sent. So the first thing I did was obviously query it with the IT team, who then started looking into it. But I knew, I know that he would actually normally, for anything that big, come and found me and spoken about it too verbally, so I wouldn't have processed it anyway. Number 4, identify areas where your business is vulnerable to fraud. So we've just obviously chatted about this. It's really important. Make sure that you and your staff know, and we'll come back to it in a minute, talk about it. Okay, so identify the areas that are vulnerable to fraud. And in particular, take extra care against cyber attacks. So cyber attack has been one of the most rising ways of getting fraud into the business. Cybercrime is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and banks are very, very good at running cybercrime, cyber fraud workshops. So by all means, contact your bank if you're interested and do their usually about an hour cyber training. Including making sure you're backing up your systems, making sure that you have the tech in place, because cyber attack also includes where they hold your data to ransom. Now you think, well, actually most small businesses they probably wouldn't bother with, but actually if you're a growing business, you need that platform in place. Okay, so develop a strategy and talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk about what you're doing and the systems you have in place. The more your staff know that you are hot for checking that fraud doesn't occur, the less they will try it on. Okay, so the more staff you have, the more susceptible you become. If they know that you're checking and you've got good systems in place and you regularly talk about it, then they won't try it on themselves. Okay, and it will create a good, trusting workplace to work in. Understand your finances. As the accountant, and hence why the whole of Simple Systems has been about understanding your finances and getting systems in place. If you understand your finances and how money leaves your business, you'll be more likely to figure out if you had a fraudulent transaction. So understand your methods of payment, who has the authority to make the payments, and who checks that they're legitimate. Okay, so all these different stages. If you get to the stage of your business where you start hiring a bookkeeper, are you going to let them do the payments from your bank, or are you going to make sure you keep control of that yourself? Then if you start to get into a slightly bigger finance department where you may have 1 or 2 people involved, what restrictions are you going to put on in there? And the key to this is understanding your finances. Everything stems from the bank account. So you need to be ensuring that you're reconciling that bank account on a regular basis to pick up if anything happens that you don't know about. Okay. Secure and protect your property. So this is not just for the property as in a property building, but also think of things like laptops, computers, smartphones, anything that you use throughout your business. Because if you haven't got not just the physical security around it, but the logging in security, then you're susceptible to somebody taking your laptop and logging in, or stealing information from a mobile phone. So for myself, I always have 2-step authentication on everything that I use, so that I need to have 2 ways to log in, not just a password, but a code as well. So that means that it's less likely people will have both of those in order to try and get into all my systems. Okay. And use and maintain inventory. So if you're using Xero, there's a fixed asset inventory register. Fixed asset register where you can, when you purchase an asset, you log it in there, and if you do regular checks on where they are and what their serial numbers are, you'll soon be able to keep up on top of your assets. Okay. Develop an action plan. This might be, if you, depending on the size of your business, you might need to get some professional help here. An action plan is basically for what happens if it happens. Okay, how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to, in all these different areas you've identified fraud, you're going to put some controls in place, but then what are you going to do if the inevitable, or hopefully the not inevitable, happens? Okay, you might want to have something like a bank manager relationship, so that as soon as you notice something, you know exactly who to call, how to put that payment on hold, and how to go about getting that money back if it is a true fraudulent activity. Okay, so basically having an action plan helps limit the losses in the case that something does occur. The last one is always report fraud and get help. Okay, so Action Fraud is the UK's National Fraud and Cybercrime Reporting Centre. You can get help if you have think that you have been had a fraudulent activity, or somebody has had the intent and you've stopped it. By all means, report it to them. Okay, they are also a great source of information, so you can find information about fraud, internet crime, and all that type of thing with Action Fraud. So remember, you're not in this alone. So I'm sat here asking you to think about your business, but actually you can reach out to an accountant if you want help setting up your systems and processes. You could go down the legal route if part of your action plan identified that you needed some legal grounds. You've got Action Fraud to talk to. You've also got online resources to find out how you can best mitigate fraud in your business. So that leaves me with your takeaway task for this week. So I would like you to go away and think about your business and the areas that might be susceptible to fraud. Then develop an action plan that will allow you the best chance of mitigating the risk of fraud and what to do should it happen. So your takeaway task is basically to go and analyse your business and put into place all the learnings that you've had today, which is what I love about takeaway tasks. So hopefully you can see here that it's nice rounding off for our Simple Systems series. So series 2 is coming to an end. We've got a guest speaker in next week. Laura from Well Organised is going to do a short video for you on Simple Systems from her perspective as a professional organiser. And then we will have a break for a week or two before coming back with Series 3. Series 3 is going to look beyond the profit and loss account. So Series 1 was all about the profit and loss. Series 3, we're going to look beyond the profit and loss. So start looking at some of the other numbers in your financial statements and what they really mean. So we'll be considering things like what a fixed asset is, what a debtor means, what a creditor actually is. Okay, so I'll look forward to bringing you Series 3. I'm going to have a little break for a couple of weeks, as I've said, and you can enjoy a guest appearance. And I look forward to seeing you all again for Series 3. Take care, everyone. Bye from Becky.